ಅದು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಚೆಕ್ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಚೆಕ್ 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 ಚೆಕ್
ಇದು ನೋಡಿ. ಹಲೋ ಚೆಕ್ 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 ಹಲೋ ಚೆಕ್ ಹಲೋ 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 ಚೆಕ್.
ಹೆಡ್ಫೋನ್ ತಗೊಂಬ, ಹೆಡ್ಫೋನ್ ತಗೊಂಬ ಫಸ್ಟು.
ಇದು ನಿಮಗೆ ರೇಂಜ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕು ನೋಡಿ, ಅಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ರೇಂಜು.
ಸರ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾ ಸರ್ ಕೆಲವೊಬ್ರು?
ಎಲ್ಲಿ
ಹಲೋ ನೋಡಿ, ನನಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟಿದ್ದು ಸಾಕು.
ಗೇಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ,
ಯಾವುದು?
ಯಾಕೋ ಹೊಡಿತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಎಷ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇಕ್ಕಿದೆ ನೋಡಿ.
ಹಾಂ, ಇನ್ನೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿ.
ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ 3, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ.
ಹಲೋ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ ಇರಿ. ಹಲೋ ಹಲೋ ಹಲೋ. ಹಾಂ, ಇದು ಬೇರೆ ಏನೋ ಪಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿರಿ, ಇದು 2 ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಅದು ಲಾಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಈಗ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ. ಹಲೋ 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 ಹಲೋ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಪಿಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅದು. ಹಲೋ 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 ಹಲೋ. ಶಂಕರ್ ಹಲೋ ಹಲೋ
of all the passengers, international passengers, quarantining them, examining them, subjecting them for the laboratory testing, and then letting them home. Following which we were following them quarantine at the home and at the hospitals, wherein our whole of the staff working under National Urban Health Mission, including the medical colleges, both government and private, helped us a lot in this screening activity. So these were the initial days, following which the number of cases increased, and we were supposed to screen all the passengers. Apart from that, we were supposed to screen all the cases of fever, ILI, and SARI. So this was a major challenge because during the lockdown period, when there was no transportation facilities and people were mentally disturbed, where to go, where exactly to go, where exactly what to do when cases of fever and other cases.
My testing 1 2 3 1 2 3
Mic testing, 1 2 3. 1 2 3. Mic testing.
I
One
can
two
hear you in the
three.
WebEx now. I can hear you in the WebEx. I'm just checking in the YouTube. Give me a second.
Check ಮಾಡಿ ಇವರು ಅನಿಲ್ ಸರ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಆಡಿಯೋ ಚೆಕ್ ಓಕೆ ಫೈನ್ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು
ಎಲ್ಲ ಓಡಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ನೋಡಿ ನಮ್ಗೇನಿಲ್ಲ ಅಣ್ಣ ಟಿವಿನ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಬಂದ
ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ನೋಡ್ತೀನಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇವ್ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಬರ್ಬೇಕು ಹಾ ಜಗನ್ನಾಥ್ ನೀವ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ ಲೈವ್ ಅಂತ ಚೆಕ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮೈಕ್ ಚೆಕ್ 1 2 3 ಚೆಕ್ 1 2 3 ಚೆಕ್ 1 2 3 ಮೈಕ್ ಚೆಕ್ 1 2 3 ಯಾರು ಅವ್ರೇನೋ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದಾರಲ್ಲ ಈಗ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳೋದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳಿಸಲ್ಲ ಈಗ ಅಲ್ಲ ವೆಬೆಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೌದಾ Okay, okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. ಇಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ನ ಲೈವ್ ಶುರು ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಲೈವ್ ಇದೆ ಇದು ಚೆಕ್ Hi, welcome to day two of CatchCon 2020. This is the 32nd state level public health conference of the Karnataka Association of Community Health and being organized by the Department of Community Medicine, Ramaiah Medical College, Bangalore. We have had an hour and a half of enthralling poster presentations by the PGs across Karnataka and outside the state. It's wonderful to look at the enthusiasm with which the students and the PGs are presenting and the delegates are presenting their research and the results. It just reemphasizes and tells us why we love this field and why we chose to become faculty and the researchers in public health. And it's fantastic to see the research that's happening across the state and outside the state also. Let's begin with a catch talk. So, in line with our theme of this conference, that is COVID-19 redefining public health, COVID, we thought we need to capture the responses of the city and town administrations, which played a leading role in the COVID response and how they address this pandemic situation, unprecedented situation. So it not only needed the administration to respond, to react to the challenges, but also to preempt the upcoming challenges and also become proactive, take proactive leadership. So let us listen to the story of BBMP and the response that they their response to COVID-19. ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಿಲ್ವಾ ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಿಲ್ಲ
immediately track these cases from the ICMR.
Let's start from first.
Strain on the resources of the hospitals were also tremendous during that period. So we did two, three things during that period to ensure that this went on smoothly. There was a task force which was constituted by the Chief Secretary of the State under Shri Tushar Girinath. We were staring at more than 3,500 cases, which thereafter touched a peak of almost 5,000 COVID cases per day. Now, this meant that we needed to have some kind of a reporting mechanism which could immediately track these cases from the ICMR portal. Thereafter, have a elaborate system of zonal offices, control rooms, which could reach out to these patients and then ensure that they are shifted to the medical facilities wherever it was required within a short span of time and then give that compliance back. The strain on the resources of the hospitals were also tremendous during that period. So we did two, three things during that period to ensure that this went on smoothly. There was a task force which was constituted by the Chief Secretary of the State under Shri Tushar Girinath sir. And I was also a member of the task force. And that task force primarily looked at the whole issue of shifting patients in time to the medical facilities. And thereafter to ensure that each and every patient is documented. And after the mandatory period in hospital, they were sent back and the discharges were shown in time. And also a proper auditing and reporting of the death. CPD cell, what we call the COVID patient. A team of around 30 to 40 members in 3 shifts, which was operating, and every 1 hour, whatever cases were reported in the ICMR portal were downloaded, and the Smart City had helped us with getting in place a system called as the Index portal, which was used very well in getting these cases downloaded, tracking them, and then referring them to the zonal control rooms. So everything was on a digital platform. We were not depending on any kind of a manual flow of data or data through the telephone. There was a specific application provided where we could track these patients, whether they were picked up, and all the updates were also done by the zones in a timely manner. And these reviews also were taken up every day at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. We used to have detailed reviews to ensure that all the zones have attended to their patients in time. And then weekly review used to happen at the level of the task force chairperson, which was Shri Tushar Girinath. And then the chief secretary, of course, on a weekly basis used to very meticulously review this particular aspects. And the government's direction of reserving 50% beds in the private hospitals also helped us tremendously. We were able to shift them. Even the ambulance control room was set up, and digital flow of data happened. The actual bed blocking, which had to happen from us, that was again a separate portal called the CHBMS was created. This was the COVID Hospital Bed Management System. Now, this was a completely in-house developed application of BBMP, which came to be of tremendous value and help to us, simply because we could immediately the data which was ported into the ICMR portal to the Index app was transferred into this application, and we could actually block beds in any private hospital, government hospital, to a particular patient, send the intimation to the ambulance team and the zonal control room, and the patient could be picked from there. And at the hospital end, when the patient actually reached the hospital, they could use the CHBMS portal, which was backward linked to the SAST portal again, which is the Government of Karnataka portal. And then we used to get a feedback in terms of the actual admission of the patient. And similarly, at the time of discharge of the patient, the CHBMS portal was used to show the discharge online. So we had this portal wherein a real-time live dashboard was available of how many patients were admitted at any point of time, how many beds were available for fresh admission. The whole platform was thereafter put to rigorous audit. We also have corrected certain glitches here and there which happened. We have had a large server data space. Having touched a peak of 5,500, thereafter when we were able to manage a load like that, today we are to less than 1,000 cases per day, and the system is more or less stable. And in fact, this particular portal was appreciated at the state level and many of the other districts wanted to adopt on these same lines, and that was subsequently taken up by the state government. So all in all, it was a team effort, and we had doctors specifically who have worked in day and night to put this in place. Many of us had to personally make field visits to ensure things were put into place. The government had also put in a system of zonal coordinators, wherein senior IAS officers were put in place for each of the zones, and then of course the commissioner himself was almost on a daily basis monitoring this. And all in all, it was a tremendous learning experience for us, because nothing was scripted before. There was no kind of a precedent to this which we could follow and say that this is the path that we needed to take. In a way, the whole many of the things we learned on the go and put systems on the go, which thankfully kind of paid off in the longer run. And we are thankful that the other departments like the health department, government of Karnataka, SAST, also supported us in these efforts, and BBMP could to a large extent handle the pandemic situation in Bangalore vis-a-vis the treatment, at least in a largely satisfactory manner.
ಏನು ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಹೊರದೇಶದಿಂದ ಬಂದಂಥವ್ರು, ಹೊರ ರಾಜ್ಯದಿಂದ ಬಂದಂಥವ್ರನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಮೊದಲನೇ ಚಾಲೆಂಜೇ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಹೊರದೇಶದಿಂದ ಬಂದಂಥವ್ರು, ಹೊರ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳಿಂದ ಬಂದಂಥವ್ರು ಅಪಾರ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆಯ ಪ್ರಯಾಣಿಕರು ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದರಿಂದ ಅವ್ರನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಗೆ ಒಳಪಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಸೀನಿಯರ್ ಸಿಟಿಜನ್ಸು ಮತ್ತು ಯಂಗರ್ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನೂ ಕೂಡ ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್ ಇಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಆ ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್ಗೋಸ್ಕರ ನಾವು ಸ್ಥಳಗಳನ್ನು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ವಿ ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಲೊಕೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಕೀಪ್ ದಮ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್. That was the first one. Second thing is, whoever we have kept under quarantine, we are supposed to give them all foods apart from testing, because during the initial period we tested them twice. As soon as they arrived in hotel or any quarantine place, and then before releasing them, we are supposed to conduct one more test. So huge number of tests were conducted. So, as I said, huge number of tests were conducted. We need to identify the labs. Being a new disease, there were hardly any laboratories. Apart from few government labs, there was no private lab which were ready to test the samples. So, government called all the labs and educated them, counseled them. We asked them to establish a lab which, having a capacity ranging from 200 to 4,000 sample testing labs. After ranging from 30 minutes to 3 hours. It almost, in few cases, it has taken us almost a day to convince them nothing is going to happen. Please come with us. We are going to take care. Be under medical care. And we have taken almost days together. That's the first gigantic task. Second thing, tracking the primary contacts. First of all, the patients were depressed, thinking that what's going to happen to us in the first thing. Then we need to talk to them to get the details of the primary contacts. Whoever has come in contact with them, we need to identify them to place them under quarantine. So that took us almost our workers' energy. Then we used to counsel them, take care of few people, don't worry. And primary contacts details it's a huge task.
Examining them,
Then
subjecting them for testing, then letting them home. For which we were following them quarantine.
Patient, we used to have 10 to 15 primary contacts. Our medical officer is supposed to take them to quarantine
the hospitals
places.
Wherein our whole
ಎಷ್ಟು ಸರಿ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಬರಕ್ಕೆ ತಯಾರಿರಲ್ಲ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅರ್ಧ ಜನ ಫೋನೇ ಸ್ವಿಚ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡೋರು, ಅರ್ಧ ಜನ ಕೈ ಸಿಗ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಟ್ರ್ಯಾಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಯು ವೋಂಟ್ ಬಿಲೀವ್, ನಾವು ಕಾಲ್ CD ಆಗ್ತಿರ್ತೀವಿ, ಕಾಲ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ವಿತ್ ಅಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಪೊಲೀಸ್. ಇದು ಯಾವ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ವರೆಗೆ ಹೋಯ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, we have established a call center to track the primary contacts in our headquarters beginning initially. Then we had zonal command centers at the every zone.
staff working under
ನಮ್ಮ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಇಬ್ಬರನ್ನ ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ವಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಹೆಡ್ ಕ್ವಾರ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲ್ಗಳನ್ನ ರಿಸೀವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, we used to give their numbers to the police, ask them to track the primary contacts. Quarantine place identify ಮಾಡಿ ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್ ಇಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ we faced heavy resistance from public. ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ವಾಸ್ ಕೇರ್ ಟು ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಕಡೆ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಕ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಮಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೂ ಹೋಗಿದ್ರು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ತಂದಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಟೆಡ್. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಥಿಂಗ್, ಸೀನಿಯರ್ ಸಿಟಿಜನ್ಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೀನಿಯರ್ ಸಿಟಿಜನ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಅಫೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್. ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಕನ್ವಿನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಅದು ನಿಮಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ, ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು take care of the COVID patients who primary contact. Even then we had a lot of problems. Ultimately, as usual, we resolved it. ಎರಡು ವಾರ್ಡ್ಗಳು ಪಡೆಯುತ್ತಲ್ಲಿ they had the highest number of cases. Mentally, naming them is not proper. So they had the highest number. It became a news in every channel. So that is the most testing time for our workers. So one positive patient bandre minimum 15 to 20 testing ತೆಗಲೇಬೇಕಾದ ಅನಿವಾರ್ಯತೆ ಇತ್ತು. It was the need of the day to break the transmission chain. So ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ we gave the target to our workers. One patient iದ್ರೆ you need to take this many number of samples. So people started refusing, thinking that if I become positive, they will take us to hospital and keep under medical care. Again, our workers struggled like anything. As usual, gradually we could able to meet the target, and where you are witnessing today, the numbers have come down. As compared to the size of the BBMP, we had shortage of manpower. So we have publicized in every possible way to recruit doctors, lab technicians and other paramedical workers. During the initial period, even they were reluctant to join. Gradually, we could recruit almost 1,000 plus workers to our manforce. So that's the biggest challenge, because we wanted the workers, so we could able to get that. Handing over the dead bodies to the relatives of the deceased. Initially, everybody was reluctant to take the body, and in first, second thing, and every place was resisting to allow the cremation of the body. Third thing, arranging the resources for the transportation of the dead body.
ಅವರು ಮೊದಲೇ ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಝೋನ್ನಲ್ಲೇ ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಬಂದಿದ್ದು, ಅದರಲ್ಲೂ ಮಲ್ಲೇಶ್ವರಂನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಆ ಒಂದು ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಈ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ರಿ ಕಾಂಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ನ ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದು ಹೋಟ್ಲಿಗೆ. ಅದು ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲೇ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನಲ್ಲೇ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಅದು ಮಾದರಿಯಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು. ಆಸ್ಪತ್ರೆ ಬೆಡ್ ಬುಕ್ಕಿಂಗಿಗೂ ಥರ ಬೆಡ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟು, ಈ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಥರ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸು ಆಯಿತು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲದಕ್ಕೂ ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕ ಅಂದರೆ ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ, ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರು ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿಕಲ್ ಸಿಟಿ, ಸಿಲಿಕಾನ್ ಸಿಟಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಆ ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕ ವಲಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಆ್ಯಪ್ಗಳು ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಎಲ್ಲದರಲ್ಲೂ ಆ್ಯಪ್, ಆರೋಗ್ಯ ಮಿತ್ರದಿಂದ ಹಿಡಿದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಂಟೈನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಝೋನ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್ದಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಥರದ ಒಂದು 28 ಆ್ಯಪ್ಗಳನ್ನ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ತಯಾರಿಯಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಆ ಆ್ಯಪ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕರಿಗೂ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ನಮ್ಮ ಆರೋಗ್ಯ ಸಿಬ್ಬಂದಿಗಳಿಗೂ ಅಲ್ಲಲ್ಲೇ ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳು ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ದಿನನಿತ್ಯ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ. ಅದೇ ಥರ ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಚಿಕಿತ್ಸೆನಲ್ಲೂ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಸಚ್ಚಿದಾನಂದ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಅಂತ ಒಂದಿತ್ತು. ಆ ಸಚ್ಚಿದಾನಂದ ಕಮಿಟಿ ರಾಜೀವ್ ಗಾಂಧಿ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಸೈನ್ಸಸ್, ಆ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಈ ಮಾರ್ಗಸೂಚಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಚಿಕಿತ್ಸೆ ನೀಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು.
In the month of March 2020, a team of 4 doctors, Dr. Arjunan Isaac, Dr. Venkat Raghava, Dr. Prabhat and myself were posted at the DME office in order to be able to prepare the various medical colleges across Bangalore and Karnataka state towards fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. We started our assignment with visits to the various medical colleges across Bangalore city. The various formats as approved by the Government of India, the Ministry of Health, the Government of India, were referred to, and the adequacy of various institutions towards quarantining of international and domestic travelers who are coming back to Karnataka was assessed in the various medical college hospitals across Bangalore. Thereafter, the requirement of various facilities at the medical colleges, both government and private, across Karnataka state were undertaken, and formats were distributed through Google Forms as well as in telephonic conversations in order to be able to collect the various infrastructural availability in these medical colleges and to be able to assess the additional needs that these colleges required in order to be able to fight the COVID-19 pandemic in the coming days. The various aspects that were assessed included the infrastructure at these institutions, the availability of the number of beds, the number of ICU beds and ventilators, oxygen facilities at this medical colleges, as well as the number of personnel across categories, doctors, nurses, as well as postgraduates who could be involved in fighting this pandemic. The deficiencies, whatever were pointed out, and measures were taken towards building up infrastructure in these institutions to prepare for the coming days to address this pandemic. In the month of June 2020, the team of 4 doctors, that is Dr. Venkatragava, Dr. Arjun, Dr. Prabhat and myself, were posted to the BBMP COVID-19 War Room on behalf of the Directorate of Medical Education in order to be able to coordinate efforts at the 16 medical colleges across Bangalore city. The 16 medical colleges included 12 private medical hospitals, medical college hospitals, as well as 4 government medical college facilities that could provide beds to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. During this time, various facilities across these hospitals were assessed through visits, and a dashboard was created in the initial bit in the form of a Google spreadsheet in order to be able to update the availability of beds as well as the occupancy of beds across these 16 institutions, and to be able to allocate patients who required these beds across these institutions. What the team did in the next few days was to be able to interact with the various zones in order to be able to allocate patients to these hospitals. Reports were collected from each of these hospitals on a 4-hourly basis, and the Excel sheets were updated in order to be able to finalize the total number of beds that were available at any point in time across these facilities. Liaising was also done with the 108 ambulance services in order to be able to identify beds across institutions in an emergency situation, both during the day and the night. This was followed by the setting up of the portal by the BBMP, which looked at a centralized allocation of beds, and the team thereafter interacted with the CHBMS or the hospital bed management portal authorities in order to be able to ensure that there was smooth allocation of patients to these facilities. Any kind of difficulties in these institutions in terms of admissions, in terms of billing, in terms of infrastructure deficiencies, in terms of also the availability of various personnel in these institutions was assessed, and it was highlighted to the hospital authorities in order to be able to address immediately. In this entire exercise, the lessons learned were that the requirement for us to be able to be prepared much before the occurrence of a full-blown pandemic is of paramount importance. And this is where the Directorate of Medical Education as well as the team were successful in terms of implementing as well as identifying the required infrastructure in these medical colleges, especially at a point in time when the private hospitals in Bangalore were not in a position to pitch in with beds. We at the start of this entire exercise had been able to identify close to around 3,000 to 3,500 beds, which were in a phased manner scaled up to nearly around 6,500 beds across Bangalore city being provided by the government and the private medical colleges. Of paramount importance was the public-private partnership that could be demonstrated
address this pandemic situation, unprecedented situation.
the governmental system as well as the private medical colleges, which is very much required
So
in terms
it
of ensuring
not only
of
needed
this
the
public-private model.
administration to respond, to react to the challenges, but also to preempt the upcoming challenges and also become proactive, take proactive leadership. So let us listen to the story of BBMP and the response that they their response to COVID-19. ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಿಲ್ವಾ ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ So I understand that
In the month of March 2020, a team of 4 doctors, Dr. Arjunan Isaac, Dr. Venkat Raghava, Dr. Prabhat, and myself, were posted at the DME office in order to be able to prepare the various medical colleges across Bangalore and Karnataka state towards fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. We started our assignment with visits to the various medical colleges across Bangalore city. The various formats as approved by the Government of India, the Ministry of Health, the Government of India, were referred to, and the adequacy of various institutions towards quarantining of international and domestic travelers who are coming back to Karnataka was assessed in the various medical college hospitals across Bangalore. Thereafter, the requirement of various facilities at the medical colleges, both government and private, across Karnataka state were undertaken, and formats were distributed through Google Forms as well as in telephonic conversations in order to be able to collect the various infrastructural availability in these medical colleges and to be able to assess the additional needs that these colleges required in order to be able to fight the COVID-19 pandemic in the coming days. The various aspects that were assessed included the infrastructure at these institutions, the availability of the number of beds, the number of ICU beds and ventilators, oxygen facilities at this medical colleges, as well as the number of personnel across categories, doctors, nurses, as well as postgraduates who could be involved in fighting this pandemic. The deficiencies, whatever were pointed out, and measures were taken towards building up infrastructure in these institutions to prepare for the coming days to address this pandemic. In the month of June 2020, the team of 4 doctors, that is Dr. Venkatragava, Dr. Arjun, Dr. Prabhat and myself, were posted to the BBMP COVID-19 War Room on behalf of the Directorate of Medical Education in order to be able to coordinate efforts at the 16 medical colleges across Bangalore city. The 16 medical colleges included 12 private medical college hospitals, as well as 4 government medical college facilities that could provide beds to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. During this time, various facilities across these hospitals were assessed through visits, and a dashboard was created in the initial bit in the form of a Google spreadsheet in order to be able to update the availability of beds as well as the occupancy of beds across these 16 institutions, and to be able to allocate patients who required these beds across these institutions. What the team did in the next few days was to be able to interact with the various zones in order to be able to allocate patients to these hospitals. Reports were collected from each of these hospitals on a 4-hourly basis, and the Excel sheets were updated in order to be able to finalize the total number of beds that were available at any point in time across these facilities. Liaising was also done with the 108 ambulance services in order to be able to identify beds across institutions in an emergency situation, both during the day and the night. This was followed by the setting up of the portal by the BBMP, which looked at a centralized allocation of beds, and the team thereafter interacted with the CHBMS or the hospital bed management portal authorities in order to be able to ensure that there was smooth allocation of patients to these facilities. Any kind of difficulties in these institutions in terms of admissions, in terms of billing, in terms of infrastructure deficiencies, in terms of also the availability of various personnel in these institutions was assessed, and it was highlighted to the hospital authorities in order to be able to address immediately. In this entire exercise, the lessons learned were that the requirement for us to be able to be prepared much before the occurrence of a full-blown pandemic is of paramount importance. And this is where the Directorate of Medical Education as well as the team were successful in terms of implementing as well as identifying the required infrastructure in these medical colleges, especially at a point in time when the private hospitals in Bangalore were not in a position to pitch in with beds. We at the start of this entire exercise had been able to identify close to around 3,000 to 3,500 beds, which were in a phased manner scaled up to nearly around 6,500 beds across Bangalore city being provided by the government and the private medical colleges. Of paramount importance was the public-private partnership that could be demonstrated during this pandemic, and the coordination between the governmental system as well as the private medical colleges, which is very much required in terms of ensuring the success of this public-private model.
Something is coming on live.
Cisco, as of now, Cisco is something problem. We'll sort it out. We will complete the session.
Will it not overlap?
As of now, it will overlap because we have not taken the control.
No, but the next speaker will join through WebEx.
He already joined.
Yeah, he's on the Zoom.
He's on panel, right?
He's already in the panel.
Bro, he's in one more person is on panel. He needs to be nice.
ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಲ್ಲ. ಶಲ್ ಗೋ ಲೈವ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಆನಂದ್ ಗಿರಿ ಶಂಕರ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಮೇ ಬಿ ಟೇಕಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಟ್. Good afternoon. We have with us Dr. Anand Giri Shankar. Hi, hi Giri. Something else is playing. Hello, Giri. Yes, we can hear you. Okay, we have with us Dr. Anand Giri, who is joining us from Wales. He is the Incident Director, COVID-19 Response and Professional Lead Consultant for Health Protection from Public Health Wales. I think UK is on spot because of the new coronavirus variant, and I think he'll be the person who can directly update us on the new variant of SARS-CoV-2 identified in the UK. Just hello. Giri, can you hear me? Please ask her to log out. Hello? Giri, can you hear me? Giri, am I audible? Hello, Anandgiri, am I audible? No voice in streaming. I'm hearing audio from streaming. Which streaming? Streaming one. No voice is streaming.
So what I'm saying, let us have it on the WebEx right away.
It's on WebEx.
And we are thankful that the other departments like the health department, government of Karnataka, SAS, also supported us in these efforts, and BBMP could, to a large extent, handle the pandemic situation in Bangalore vis-a-vis the treatment at
ಏನು ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಹೊರದೇಶದಿಂದ ಬಂದಂಥವ್ರು ಹೊರ ರಾಜ್ಯದಿಂದ ಬಂದಂಥವ್ರನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು ಮೊದಲನೇ. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಹೊರದೇಶದಿಂದ ಬಂದಂಥವ್ರು ಹೊರ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳಿಂದ ಬಂದಂಥವ್ರು ಅಪಾರ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆಯ ಪ್ರಯಾಣಿಕರು ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದರಿಂದ ಅವ್ರನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಸೀನಿಯರ್ ಸಿಟಿಜನ್ಸು ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಂಗರ್ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನೂ ಕೂಡ ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್ ಇಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಕ್ವಾರಂಟೈನ್ಗೋಸ್ಕರ ನಾವು ಸ್ಥಳಗಳನ್ನು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ to give them a quarantine. That was the first one. Second is whoever we have kept under quarantine, we are supposed to give them normal goods. Apart from that, because in the initial period we tested them twice. As soon as they arrived in hotel or any quarantine place, and then before releasing them, we are supposed to conduct one more test. So huge number of tests were conducted. So as I said, huge number of tests were conducted. We need to identify the labs. Being a new disease, there are hardly any laboratories. Apart from few government labs, there was no private lab which were ready to test the samples. So government called all the labs and educated them, counseled them. We asked them to establish a lab and a capacity ranging from 200 to 4,000 sample testing labs. After running for 20 days, we are this lab. In few days, it has taken us almost a day to conduct the test. They told that please submit us. We are going to take care. We and our medical team are evaluating and expecting almost days results. That's the first giant task. Secondly, tracking the primary contacts. First of all, the patient were depressed, thinking that what's going to happen to us in the first day. Then we need to talk to them to get the details of the primary contacts. Whoever has been in contact with them. We need to identify them to place them on quarantine. So that took us almost our workers' energy. Then we used to counsel them and identify the classification people where they live. The area of the primary contacts database is significantly developed.
Examining them,
Then try to
subjecting them for the testing, then letting them go,
following
following which
which
we
can
will
be
keep them quarantined.
basically used to have 10 to
afternoon. Anandgiri, can you hear me? Anandgiri, can you hear me? Good. Thanks for the patience. There were some technical glitches. I'm happy to have. I think it's early morning. You just got up and joined us. Thank you. So we have Dr. Anand Giri, who is our incident commandant for COVID-19 and works with professional lead consultant for health protection, public health, Wales. Now the new buzz is the new variant of COVID-19, and I think it's apt for Anand Giri to talk about this issue and what is this virus all about? Are we need to be scared? Is it going to be worse than the coronavirus? And what is the preparedness we need to keep in mind with the vaccine coming up? Over to you, Giri. Something else is coming.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, thanks. Lalita, you've confirmed you can hear me, so I'll start. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share our emerging picture with you. And I'm very nice to see old friends as well, and nice to see Shalini madam and others. So I just briefly share some of the emerging findings from the new variant of SARS-CoV-2 that has come about in the last few weeks. So if I just start off by giving a little bit of a background as to how this was identified and how it was recognized. So since about early part of October, there was a notice that we noticed that there were case numbers going up quite significantly in the London area and the southeast of England, as well as in South Wales, where I live currently. So despite these locations being in sort of tier 3 high level restrictions, there was increase in growth rates. And when genomic analysis of those positive isolates was undertaken, it became very clear that the circulating virus strain was different in its antigenic structure compared to the Wuhan variant. As we all know, coronaviruses are known to undergo mutation, and so having a changed structure is not surprising or not new. But what was surprising in this particular instance was that there were multiple changes in the spike protein characteristic of the coronavirus. So you will all be familiar that the spike protein is the main source for the virus to attach to the human host cell through the ACE2 receptors. And in this particular analysis, we found that there were at least 17 different mutations that were identified at various locations, either in the ORF1AB gene or the S gene and N gene and ORF8, so on and so forth. But the particular variation of interest was in the spike protein. It had at least 8 different mutations, about 2 deletions and 6 substitutions. The main issue was around the deletion of 2 amino acids in position 69 and 70, and also a replacement in what is known as N501Y. So what does this mutation do? It actually allows for better binding of the virus to the human host cell because some of these mutations are located adjacent to the furin cleavage site. It allows for easy attachment of the virus to the human host cells. Thereby, the penetration is better and it reproduces quicker. More human cells are infected compared to a previous variant. That's why we think this is more transmissible. The viral load identified in patients with this particular variant was much higher compared to the Wuhan predecessor variant. So this meant that initial analysis suggested that this variant may be up to 70% more transmissible than the previous circulating viruses. So we observed a similar picture in Wales, and we did genomic analysis. We had about 20 cases initially. We now know it's more than 600, 700 cases. Perhaps even that is an underestimation. So in terms of clinical presentation of these cases, they were no different. They were unremarkable. They presented exactly the same as previous ones, with typical symptoms and a short illness in most individuals. But there were just too many of them. That was the main issue. We did not find any difference in age, gender, occupation, any such. We are undertaking a case control study at the moment to identify any other potential risk factors. But at the moment, that doesn't seem to be the case. We did not notice any higher levels of hospitalizations or death, but it's too early to say. Therefore, in the current picture, we think this is more transmissible, but not necessarily more severe. The other concern would be whether the current diagnostic assays, whether the RT-PCR assays or other antigen tests, the lateral flow devices, point of care testing, will they actually detect these variants? And the initial indications are yes, they will. But then how do we identify those from those diagnostic tests? Currently, it is very difficult to do that. Genomic analysis seems to be the only definitive way to identify this variant. But there are some proxy markers that can be used to identify these through RT-PCR tests. if you have RT-PCR tests that have diagnostic targets on the S gene, for example, what we have observed is that there is a consistent S gene dropout in these diagnostic tests. So S gene target failure, SGTF as it's abbreviated as, is a very good proxy marker for identifying this particular variant. We know that most assays do not only exclusively target one gene. It's usually 2, 3, or more than that target. So where you have detection of other genes, but consistent dropout of S gene, that's a good marker for this particular variant. So that's as far as its characteristics is concerned. But how does that impact on, for example, vaccine effectiveness? We know the currently licensed vaccine in the UK is the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which is also targeting the spike protein. But at the moment, we do not think that it is actually going to make much of an impact in terms of negating the effectiveness of the vaccine, but we would have to just wait and see. That's still an emerging picture. So I think at this point in time, we know that the growth rate was such high that even with restrictions, lockdown restrictions, it was able to multiply at a high level. And initial estimates suggest that this variant alone could have contributed to anywhere between 0.4 to 0.9 increase in the reproductive number. So the clinical presentation, as I said, has remained same. What are we now trying to do to control this? Obviously, the most important thing will be to undertake robust genomic and virological surveillance, as well as keeping a eye on the growth rate and how this particular variant has now become the most dominant variant in circulation. And why did this happen is a good question that people might be having in their minds. So there are three possible explanations, of which one explanation is more likely than the other two. The first explanation is that usually when there is prolonged SARS-CoV-2 infection in an individual who may be immunocompromised, there is always a chance for mutation to happen, and a lot of what virologists will describe as immune mutant escape that collect, and that could be a strong reason. And we believe that to be the most important driver, and that's the working hypothesis at the moment. The two other reasons which could cause this would be when the virus jumps species from humans to animals and undergoes adaptation, mutation in the animal host and jumps back species into humans. That's a possibility. We saw some of that in the form of a variant which was observed in Denmark amongst the mink population a couple of months ago. That is one. But we think that has not contributed so much in the UK because the epidemiological evidence suggests that there was not the level of interaction of these positive cases with animal hosts. The third possibility is that this particular virus could have been in circulation in other countries at lower level, but because genomic analysis do not happen at high rates in most other countries, we think it might have remained undetected. But that's also unlikely because the growth rate should have been quite high in other countries as well. We think this is quite a bit of a UK problem at the moment, but we know that as a result of UK travelers having traveled to other countries, there is evidence of some small numbers in other countries as well. We're also looking very closely at vaccine failures at the moment. Just check that there have been no failures. And if there are, then I think we'll be very interested to find out what variant they had. And if it was the variant that of concern currently, then it would just become all the more problematic for the vaccine. So I think that's where we are as far as we know. So I'll stop here, Lalita. I'm happy to take any questions, or if the audience or delegate want to ask any specific questions on any of those aspects, I'm happy to share. I can't hear you now.
Hello?
Yeah, that's better. I can hear you now.
Okay, fine. It was very informative. Now with this new variant in, I think, genetic mutations, are we expecting many more such mutations which would cause is a cause of concern for all of us? And the second question I would like to ask us, what is the age group it's affecting? I heard it is likely to affect the younger population. And is there
Okay.
any evidence on study on that?
Okay. So coronaviruses, like other respiratory viruses, are known to undergo mutations. So this is, in a sense, not surprising. But what is surprising is when this particular virus is about 29 nucleotides away from the original Wuhan variant. In strict virological terms, it's a bit far away from its parent virus. But usually when multiple mutations occur, they happen over a long period of time with a lot of intermediary variants. That seems to have not happened here. We seem to have, this particular variant has acquired a lot of mutations, multiple sites. So in particular, the deletion at 6970 and the N501Y seems to be the most important one. Will this just stop here or will it mutate again is a really big question. Anything can happen. If there are further mutations of this particular variant or any other newer variant, it will always be challenging. So from a public health population point of view, the big interventions that we think we should be focusing on is having very good surveillance on circulating strains. Otherwise, clinical presentation wise, it's very unremarkable to differentiate between patients presenting with this variant and a different variant. So future mutations are definitely possible. What its implications will be remains unknown. And in terms of your second question about the age group, the data that we have seen in Wales from a very small sample is quite wide varied. We've had the youngest case was in 11 years, the oldest was 71 years, and everything in between. The median age we had was 41 years. Having said that, we haven't necessarily actively looked for this variant in pediatric population. But when currently the schools are all closed here because of the Christmas and New Year break, when the schools reopen in the new year, we do plan to undertake a lot more close surveillance in the in the younger age groups. Thank you. I still can't hear you. You're on mute.
Okay. Any questions from audience? Kindly put it on chat so that we pose it to Dr. Anand.
Am I meant to be looking at the chat? I can't see anything.
Is it? Okay. Fine. Measures has adopted at Wales to tackle this variant. Anything special other than what you took for COVID virus?
So we've undertaken we've initiated a few actions now. Obviously, because the growth rates and the pandemic was progressing so rapidly, the government has decided to put in further lockdown measures from the weekend 2 days ago. So we think that might be a blanket approach and it will probably have some impact on viral transmission in 3 to 4 weeks' time. So initiating lockdown is one. As I said earlier, we will be undertaking a case control study, and we've just started recruiting cases into that. So hopefully, in the next week or two, we should have some preliminary results coming out of that. We are undertaking increased sequence of isolates going back in time to look at to better understand whether this virus had been in circulation much before we actually knew about it. The earliest case we found in Wales was from early November, but I think in England that has been probably in circulations from September, October time. But the growth rate dramatically increased from about middle of October, middle of November towards the end of November, and mostly now in December. Then at the moment when we do our diagnostic testing, most of our platforms that we use do not target S genes. So we're trying to get some platforms where we can actually look at S gene targets. But those are all some of the back end measures. In terms of public facing messaging, I think the main message we are trying to promote is that this virus is more transmissible. So all the non-pharmaceutical interventions such as social distancing, face coverings, and hygiene, all of those need to be adhered to even more strictly than ever before. And then we're looking at, as I said, very closely at every vaccine adverse event and every potential vaccine failure. And then the next action we took is we looked at reinfections. And we have in Wales just over 120,000 confirmed cases since the start of the pandemic. So all the patients who had the infection in the earlier first wave, I've been looking at the most recent cases to check what's the level of reinfection and whether reinfection is caused by the new variant, meaning to say that any immunity acquired as a result of infection from first wave, is it going to be negated? Is it short-lived? So those are some of the 6 or 7 main actions that we have taken so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Giri. Last question. I think we have planning to start our schools and colleges the 10th and 12th ending. Government of Karnataka has reopen. I don't know whether this would be a point to be considered before we open, because it would definitely cause alarm to the public as well as the parents because of its
Yeah. Yeah, on that aspect, I think closing educational sector has got lot of negative impacts on child development, child skill acquisition, etc. The harms of not being at school, not the harms of disrupted learning is far more greater than the harm of COVID itself. So education, the consensus currently based on evidence is that educational institutional closure should be a last resort. It should not be. First point. The second point is when educational institutions are open, schools, and there is difficulty in maintaining social distancing, especially in younger age groups, it's impossible to keep children separated in primary school age group. There are a lot of confounders which would actually make it difficult for you to exactly identify whether transmission is happening in the school setting, because there is a lot more activities that happen, children coming into school, the school transport, then the parents congregating around school drop-off areas and pickup areas, children going back to school. And when there is high community prevalence, these are all children coming from the same community. So whether you keep them out of school, there may be other opportunities for mixing in the community. So the policy we have adopted is that we would try and keep schools and educational institutions open for normal face-to-face teaching as far as possible. But if the new variant emerges to be a bit more affecting the pediatric population, then we may have to reconsider that decision. So in respect of your question of the actions planned in Bangalore, in Karnataka, then I think the main decision point would be around undertaking surveillance for existing strains. And if you have enough confidence that the new variant has not made its way into the population there, I think opening educational institutions would not be a bad idea. Thank you. That's my opinion.
Thank you so much. I think it was very informative and very updated information which you got from COVID virus to your own. It started now. I hope it get contained there and controlled there so that many countries are not. Thank you, Dr.
We don't want to be the next Wuhan. Yeah, definitely.
And I think that will not happen because we are all Britain is quite open to.
Okay, thank you very much. It
Thank you.
was absolutely nice to join you all. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Other participants can kindly join into the parallel sessions which are going on the all A and all B also, which links have been given. We'll join back again at 5 o'clock.
Testing 1 2 3. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ?